On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Vice President Kamala Harris capstones a raucous and electrified Democratic National Convention in Chicago, setting up a high-stakes home stretch in the battle for the White House. We have it all covered for you next on Paris on Politics.
This is Paris on Politics from Fox 32 Chicago.
Welcome to Paris on Politics, where we go behind the headlines and beyond the spin. And today we have four people that are experts at doing just that. They are Mike Flannery, political analyst here at Fox 32 and longtime former political reporter. Amanda Vinicky, Chicago Tonight, WTTW political reporter and host of The Week in Review. Matt McGill of WVON Radio, and Rick Pearson, senior political reporter at the Chicago Tribune. Gentlemen, let's get right into this. We know how Kamala Harris's speech played in the arena. It was electrified. How did it play in the living rooms of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Grand Rapids, Michigan, or Wauwatosa, Wisconsin?
Well, I think, look, this speech did everything that she could have hoped for. It was heavy on emotion, heavy on introducing herself. Here's who I am. Here's who I was as a little girl. Here's how I grew up. It was perhaps light on policy. That's the strongest criticism that Republicans have leveled at it. She's going to have to fill in the blanks on some of that, but mission accomplished.
There were some policy moments, but there were broader themes in her address. American exceptionalism, freedom. It almost seems like, Rick Pearson, a speech that Reagan or some Republican would have given in the 1980s.
Well, if you look at this entire convention, this is the co-opting of the old Republican message of USA and flag waving.
A lot of chants of USA in the crowd.
And freedom and liberty has been, Republicans have ceded that basically to the Democrats as they follow Donald Trump, and this was their Democratic moment to kind of seize that kind of banner, and that speech reflected it. I will tell you one thing about the speech. I was surprised at how short it was. It was about 36 minutes.
Compared to a certain former president, Bill Clinton, who maybe didn't read the memo
I thought you
on brevity.
meant President Trump, who, let's be clear, his
Well,
RNC speech
or former President Obama, they all went long.
Yeah.
Or Bill Clinton for that. But I mean, 36, then I kind of remembered that in covering her, sometimes her speeches are normally 18 minutes, so I figured getting elevated to be a presidential nominee, you get to double the time.
You know, people were surprised when she came out. They were like, is she coming out already? So even the timing of her coming out,
because they realized that meant Beyonce was definitely not making an appearance.
Right, exactly.
Amanda?
Yeah, I mean,
you were in the arena.
That was wild, first of all, the whole Beyonce rumor, and I don't know where that started. I mean, TMZ
confirmed she's in the building.
I mean, I don't know if it was brilliant because it got a ton more people watching this speech. I mean, when you ask, what about voters in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania? Many of them maybe don't give a hoot, and they're not even going to turn it on, but they might for a Bay show.
When TMZ and social media exploded, I think it may have been an all-time recent record for viewership. I mean, I've got to look at the ratings.
So then is it a letdown that she didn't show?
Well, and it was a huge letdown when that happened. That's right.
But still, if you stay and you watch the speech, who cares? If you're Kamala Harris, you're reaching people that might not otherwise have tuned in if they were going to be there.
But they might have been upset.
Younger voters, sure.
All right, so you talk about being light on policy, but there was a moment of foreign policy, the most contentious issue at the convention, Israel and Gaza, the war there. So let's take a listen to how Vice President Harris handled this issue in her speech.
With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done.
Does this reach some of those uncommitted pro-Palestine delegates who wanted to hear more on protecting the folks in Gaza and Palestine?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so at all.
I do think on her foreign policy, though, pro-NATO, pro-the alliances.
Pro-Ukraine.
Pro-Ukraine, anti-Vladimir Putin, anti- the dictator in North Korea, Kim Jong-un. That is a reaffirming of 80 years of what used to be the bipartisan consensus on American foreign policy, but that Donald Trump has broken.
Backed by a lethal military.
Right.
Commander-in-Chief.
To use that word.
All right, Matt McGill, there are
wait,
some...
real
okay,
quick,
go ahead,
I'm sorry, I
Amanda.
want to touch on this because I do think that was the most muted response that she received. There was applause. The clip that you played where she referenced Gaza, she also, prior to that, had said, I'm standing by Israel. We are never going to back down from support. It got applause, but no, far more muted. I mean, she was walking that line, but Paris, I don't think it satisfies those people who were upset that they didn't have a Palestinian speaker and who said, why do we trust you to be able to carry forward with our asks on this when you can't do something as minor as having a speaker from
Now, here's the question, though. Is it a stronger message to pro-Palestinian supporters than anything that Biden has said? And if it is, then that works enough, right? That will allay some.
I don't know that it satisfies them, but she certainly, one, had to address this issue because truly that was the only discordant note in this thing. Two, I mean, she was very pronounced in that whatever ceasefire deal is not only security for Israel, but it's security and self-determination for Palestine, which is, you know, those are key foreign diplomatic phrases. But again, people, I think the Palestinian supporters were looking for more of a differentiation from the Biden policy.
All right, I want to get to some of the domestic issues she's talking about. Matt McGill, she's talking about creating an opportunity economy. She's talking about affordable housing and housing shortages. Are these important topics to reach those middle-of-the-road voters?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at the speech and you look at the entire week was gradually talking to Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, right, in various ways. In Michigan, we just talked about some of the pro-Palestinian support there, affordable housing, working class, union. She had the whole week just built on all of those things. For some of the center-right people, right, all week we heard people talk about her as a prosecutor, her respect for the law and order. Her colleagues, former attorney generals, come up and speaking about, she respects the law and how good she is in enforcement.
What about D.L. Hewley apologizing for all the things he slammed her on for being a prosecutor? He said, I got it all wrong. I didn't even do a Google search until just now.
Right. It's not just politicians who flip the script. It's actors and celebrities, too. Let's hear a bit of an interview I conducted on Thursday evening with someone who is as responsible as anyone for bringing this convention to Chicago. That's Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth. Take a look.
It's everything I hoped it would be. It's so joyful. The city looks great. People are getting out and enjoying the city, but also having a great time at the convention. Everything is going along really smoothly, and I think we've really united the Democratic Party here under this roof in the last 4 days.
You know, we mentioned your speech last night. You focused a lot on your struggles with IVF and fertility and starting a family. You hear the Republican Party say they're the party of family values. J.D. Vance has said the Democrats have anti-family, anti-child values. Was your speech maybe trying to recast the Democrats as the party of family values?
We are the party of family values. We're the party that thinks that you should make your own decisions about your family. Remember that J.D. Vance, goes out there and insults people who don't have children, and then he voted against my bill that would guarantee the right to access reproductive health care. You can't have it both ways.
On the IVF front, what would President Harris do to ensure access to IVF or fertility treatment for those who want to start families?
Well, you can pass my right to a Reproductive Health Care Act, which would guarantee the right for anybody who is seeking reproductive health care to access it, would allow doctors to provide that health care if you want to provide it, and hospitals to cover it, and insurance to cover it. It doesn't require anybody to access if you don't want to or to provide it, but if you do, you would have a statutory right to access reproductive health care.
You know, there's been some criticism that there hasn't been enough policy, IVF aside. What should Kamala Harris focus on policy-wise? Will she hit on some policy items?
I think you're going to hear her do that, and especially over the next 75 days as she gets out on the campaign trail. Remember that this is the launch pad for her. She'll get out there. She'll take her message to America. She's already done the bus tour. She'll continue to reach out all across the country, and you're going to see more and more policy come forward.
You know, the former President Trump said he misled folks, saying he didn't know that Kamala Harris was identifying as black. He thought that was recent. But she is biracial, half South Asian. Does it mean something to the AAPI community to have someone of Kamala Harris's background leading the ticket?
Oh, absolutely. The community is energized. She will be, in addition to the first black woman president, the first woman president, the first AANHPI president. And we're so proud that we're going to have representation so that our daughters can look up and say, you know what, an Asian American is an American, and they can one day be president too.
Are you going to try to convince the Democrats to have the convention here again in 4 years?
I might let somebody else have a turn. I'm just so pleased that we've had it here. I think we set a new standard for the quality of convention. If they want to come back in 4 years, I'd be honored to host it again, but we might let someone else do it next time.
All right, Senator Duckworth says Chicago set a new standard for the quality of convention. How did Chicago do?
Spectacular. 5 stars. And the reason that we've had this is the 26th presidential nominating convention here is because I'm told that the last time the Democrats made money on a convention was 96 here. And then they made money this time.
They raised $94 million. And J.B. Pritzker guaranteed that they would.
Well, and it's
without
easy,
opening up his own wallet.
It's easy to get in and out of Chicago. Milwaukee didn't have enough hotel rooms.
It wasn't
for the
easy to get
Republicans.
in and out of the convention for many people, though.
It was not. I mean, I do think Chicago spectacular, 5 stars, 6-pointed ones. I mean, everybody loved the city of Chicago, and the weather was immaculate, out of anybody's control.
That's it.
But
the weather was the star
It
of
was
the
like
show.
a movie. I mean, it was perfect, and the
How
convention
many people
itself.
came up?
I mean,
Is
you had
Chicago this
a mix
beautiful
of,
all year round?
right?
Yeah,
Of course it is. Of course.
I
But
had one say, if this is like all the time, I could almost tolerate the winter. And I said, you should stick around for the weekend.
How did the leader of a small village become known as the worst mayor in America?
She cannot continue to intimidate and gangster her way through this.
From showy billboards and expensive police bodyguards to Vegas trips and retaliation allegations, we bring you an inside look into Mayor Tiffany Henyard and the drama in Dalton. Streaming now at Fox 32 on Fox Local. Search Fox Local on these streaming platforms. Download and watch today. Chicago Sports Insiders.
I am so excited. This is gold right now. It's gold.
Streaming now on your smart TV at Fox 32 on Fox Local, your home of the Bears team.
Every Bears game will be must-see TV.
Following every step of a historic season.
Hardcore on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Download Fox Local and get in the game now.
Touchdown, Bears!
Search Fox Local on these streaming platforms and start watching today.
And McGill, how about Police Superintendent Larry Snelling and the way they handled protests, the way they handled security? Seem to be getting high marks from the mayor. We'll hear from the mayor in just a second, but what about from you?
I think, look, that's a no-win situation, right? You're always going to have complaints coming from protesters that they don't have enough access. But at the end of the day, really the goal of Snelling and the city, the mayor, was to make sure this wasn't 1968. And by that standard, yes, they were successful.
And let's hear from a very emotional Mayor Brandon Johnson early on Friday, taking a bit of a victory lap.
If the 1968 convention went down in history as the example of police brutality, then the 2024 convention will go down as the example of constitutional policing.
Is there a lingering benefit that this will have for the city, like 96 seemed to have?
Oh, I think so. I mean, it's funny how you had all of these people from recasting, is this going to be another 68, forgetting about, 96 convention. I think now with these two in the bank, maybe those ghosts of 68 can finally be put to rest and put away.
96 arguably launched the West Loop, led to billions of dollars worth of new construction, helped to stimulate the development there.
I think Oprah had a role in that too, just having that studio there.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of things, the Bulls and the Blackhawks.
Yeah, United Center was only 2 years old.
That's right. But if you're looking for the real winner here, I think in terms of being the guy who really brought the convention here, guaranteed the finances of it, it's Governor Pritzker. He's the one who should be out taking a victory lap. This thing wouldn't have happened.
So hard to get it here.
Joe Biden would not have brought it here without the promise from JB, basically, that I'll write a check to cover it if it falls short.
Pritzker told me that every time he saw Biden, he said, "We're bringing the convention to Chicago, right? He basically twisted his arm. What about the protests? These groups promised tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. It didn't materialize, did it?
No, it was a letdown. You never want to build expectations that you cannot meet, and that is what they did. The police said, we promise we're not going to have a repeat of 68. They followed through. The protesters, 30,000. You had nowhere near that number. I think it was actually pretty impressive leading up to the convention how much messaging they got and attention from the media. So they got their word out, but it was certainly not what we had expected.
Certainly at some of these protests in Union Park, there were as many, if not more, media and police than there were protesters. I want to get back to some of the content at the convention. Another Illinois connection, Rick Pearson, Adam Kinzinger, the former congressman. He has been as outspoken as anybody against Trump and MAGA republicanism. He got up there and said, my old party basically doesn't exist, and it's patriotic as a Republican to support the Democratic ticket this time.
I think when it comes to effective speeches, I think his was right up there. I mean, because of one, of who he is, and as his line was, I bet you didn't expect to see me here, kind of thing. But I thought in disarming kind of that Republican, being a Republican and Republican ideals, I think that opened a door not just to non-Trump supporting Republicans, but also to independents as well. And I think, you know, we all know somebody who's a Republican that is only because Trump is the leader that they're following along, but in private will tell you, I don't want to go through this.
He carried the flag for the Republican worldview that, again, used to be shared by Democrats and Republicans, that traces all the way back to Dwight Eisenhower in the post-World War II period, of America as the national security guarantor. Kinzinger was a spokesman for that. And of course, Trump has just vowed to blow that whole worldview up.
A much more isolationist platform on the Republican side. Moments before Kinzinger's speech, I caught up with him on the convention floor and asked him a little bit about it. Take a listen.
Why do you feel it's important not to just oppose Trump, not to just support Harris, but actually come on stage at the Democratic National Convention and speak?
Well, I mean, look, it's the Democratic Convention has shown that they're interested in reaching out to good Republicans. They've had, I've seen people from another party, you know, address a convention, but it's always been like one night. They've brought people every night. And what's important here is to say, look, we can disagree on policy. Like, frankly, I disagree with my wife on things sometimes. But what we can't disagree on is the importance of democracy, the fact that we need to be united. And frankly, even if I don't agree with everything, Kamala has a vision for the future. When was the last time anybody's heard Donald Trump articulate anything close to a vision except just litigating past grievances?
And I just heard today that he's going to hold some kind of J6 awards or something like that. I mean, how do you react to the fact that he's playing up these folks as martyrs, as victims? You were there that day. I talked to you that day. It was a sickening day. You had a gun with you because of how threatening it was. What do you make of that?
Look, I mean, it almost at this point feels like he's trying to lose, except I know he's not. You know, this is what happens when you saturate yourself in Truth Social and all you see is people calling these folks martyrs. It's insane. I hope America sees that and recognizes that this guy has no interest in holding people that break the law to account. He's not the party. He's not the leader of law and order. If we ever have another January 6th again like this, it continues to erode our democracy and erode people's faith in the country, and we can't have that.
You've talked about the fact that some of your families just really pissed at you. They're down that kind of rabbit hole. What are they going to make of seeing you appear in front of a bunch of Democrats?
I'm going to blow up their minds, and it's going to be awesome. Like, if you are angry because I'm here to address a Democratic convention, you have something broken in you, right? Because Americans usually respected political differences. So they're all my distant family. My close family is really good to me, but they can be as angry as they want.
Last question. I mean, is it too much of a Pollyanna-ish statement to say that this country can get back to governance from the middle or bipartisanship? The Republican Party can move away from perhaps MAGA extremism and be a party that does want to work across the aisle?
I think it's possible, but the only way to get there is through Donald Trump losing. I mean, if he wins, it's going to reinforce to the Republicans that, you know, a guy like Donald Trump is who you need. He has no interest in anybody but himself. I mean, literally the guy has never had a thought about anybody beyond how something impacts himself. So the only way to get to a resurrected Republican Party is to go through the first part of that and see a destroyed, defeated Republican
How
Party.
does it feel to do this in your home region, your home area, being from the Joliet area?
Feels great. It's good to be back, and it's exciting. A lot of energy here.
Join animal lovers and their dogs at Montrose Harbor Saturday, September 7th for the Paws Chicago 5K Run, the city's largest pet-friendly event. Help save homeless animals and get your tickets at pawschicago.org/5K.
It's been 3 weeks in this matchup of Trump versus Harris, and the race seems to be tightening. With repeated appearances in all 7 of the battleground states, the candidates and their VP choices are repeatedly hitting spots that will hopefully win them the coveted electoral votes that will put them over the 270 mark. I'm S.E. Cupp, inviting you to join us each week with partner newspaper and television reporters in every swing state market. It's a wild ride. Hope you can join us.
Weeknights at 11 on Fox 32 Chicago.
To me, Michelle Obama might have gotten the loudest applause of the night. She prosecuted the case against Trump, casting his racist rhetoric against them, the result of fear of, quote, hardworking, successful people who happen to be black, that the president of the United States is a black job. How did her speech play in living rooms?
I mean, you almost feel like Michelle Obama is the best speech deliverer right now of our time.
Better than her husband, I think.
She's shorter than her husband, that's for sure. You know, the president can go long. She just hits the note. People connect with her, they can relate to her, and her message seems to hit a broader audience than most politicians do. What I was concerned about, though, was whether or not people were going to look at her and look at this speech and be like,
Why is she not running?
Would she be our candidate? Is she the female candidate that we really want up there? But in true fashion, she knows how to spread the love and focus back on what the mission was.
I take her at her word that she wants nothing to do with electoral politics.
Even if people are asking for it, she is not ready to agree. She's learned the word no.
Well, let's hear a little bit of that speech.
Regardless of where you come from, what you look like, who you love, how you worship, or what's in your bank account, we all deserve the opportunity to build a decent life. All of our contributions deserve to be accepted and valued. Because no one has a monopoly on what it means to be an American. No one.
So there was a real rock star vibe at this convention. That roll call was pretty hilarious with all the different songs per state. That was a pretty ingenious idea.
Original, they completely reinvented that dry as sawdust roll call.
And the DJ spinning that. I saw the rehearsals of that, so I knew that was coming. But many of us here were at the RNC too. Talk about the difference in vibes with these two conventions.
Well, I think one, obviously, that was coming off of the assassination attempt. So I think there was a bit more
just
hesitation,
somber.
You know, yes, more somberness, and that kind of broke open when he actually did appear on the floor. I mean, this convention was destined to be a somber one if Biden was still the nominee.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, a month ago, this was not going to be the electrified, unified United Center
Literally
that it
a
was
month
this week.
ago, Paris. I mean, that is incredible to think how much the dynamic has changed. Going back to the RNC, I spoke with one of the National Republican Committeemen from Illinois who said, wow, I haven't left a convention like this so excited, so sure of the Republican Party and our nominees' chances ever. This is amazing.
It flipped within days. It flipped within days.
Did you imagine that this story would be bigger than an assassination attempt on the President of the United States? We're not even thinking about it right now.
Well,
the last 30 days.
A sitting president being forced by his own party, by the way. And Nancy Pelosi had a fascinating conversation with David Axelrod at the University Club this week, and she did not want to go into how influential she was, but she twisted some arms here. But Mike Flannery, let's talk about, in the time we have left, where is this race right now? What kind of boost did the Harris ticket get? What happens going forward?
Well, speaking of Axelrod, a guy I've known for about 50 years, he's, as I understand it, he's going around saying if the election were held right now, it would be a Trump victory. He argues that Trump enjoys an advantage in the Electoral College. And, you know, all he's got to do is break through one state in that blue wall, and he's the president. You know, carry Pennsylvania, as long as she doesn't break through in North Carolina or Arizona or Georgia. You know, it's on the razor's edge. And you know, so the Robert F. Kennedy voters, I mean, look, he's talking about dropping out. I saw Cornel West walking the halls yesterday at the United Center, giving dozens of interviews. I mean, he's out there trashing.
So a lot of things, these conventions, a lot of people are there to build their own profile individually, not just the party. But Amanda Vinicky, we didn't talk about Tim Walz. His speech, did that meet the moment?
I do think it met the moment. It was late. I'm not sure how many people watched it. That was maybe one of the few criticisms.
That was Bill Clinton going on for 2 hours, moving him out of prime time. Maybe one of the few criticisms here. But I mean, I think we all sort of have the people that we talk to, right? And so a lot of my fellow mom friends are over the top adoring Tim Walz. They think that he is the right guy. His son weeping with excitement for his father. It wasn't even the speech. It was the lead up to it, the family values that they believe he brings. As Rick talked about earlier, this was a convention where you really saw sort of a flipping of the script. The Republicans for so long had the mantle of wearing red, white, and blue and claiming USA and patriotism and freedom and family values. And this is a convention where they really worked, and I think to just the non-political folks that you hear from, and I've had conversations with, flip the script on that. All right, a few minutes left. Matt McGill and Rick Pearson, swing states neck and neck. What do you predict for the next couple of months?
I know. Well, I guess we're all going to look at the polls and try to see what's going to happen. I think you're going to see a continuation of what we saw this week, focusing on those states, messaging out to union workers, working class people, and trying to connect in many dots as they possibly can, and still message out to the Michigan pro-Palestinian supporters that they were very, very concerned about, and how they were able to split that message up is going to be interesting to see.
Rick Pearson, David Axelrod saying he still thinks if the election were held today, Trump would win. Is the momentum, though, going in a certain direction? And do you agree with that take?
I think there's momentum going in the Harris-Walz direction, but how long and what can happen? I mean, you know, 70 days is still a lot of time in politics. I'm curious to see, for example, like in Arizona, where Ruben Gallego is running against Kerry Lake in the Senate race. Ruben Gallego, who grew up in Evergreen Park, and got a national spotlight appearance for, and again, military, which used to be the strong Republican aspect. I want to see how somebody like him, he's up like 8 points there. And when I talked to him, it was Biden then, but he said, I can help the president.
So it's not just the White House, it's prospects for Democrats in the Senate and the House now. They have a realistic chance to either take or retain power. Guys, we're actually out of time. It's been a long week. A lot of us need some sleep. Yeah. I want to thank Mike Flannery, Amanda Vinicky, Matt McGill, and Rick Pearson. Thanks so much for joining us. And that is a wrap for this week. The circus is up and left town. Life can go back to normal in our fair city. So enjoy this beautiful weekend, and so long, everyone.
Discover Chicago's hidden gems and untold tales.
If you look up, odds are you're seeing our work.
They have such an intense and fierce look when they swoop down and grab a fish.
3, 2, 1, go!
Fox 32's photographers share the stories they've captured with you.
Fountain jet shoots up about 150 feet. Our designers, you know, the sky is their canvas.
See Chicago through their unique lens. Streaming now at Fox 32 on Fox Local. Download Fox Local on these streaming platforms and start watching.
What is GMFB Overtime? It's OMG Highlights. LOL interviews on and off the field.
What is your running style?
I'm always trying to destroy whoever's in front of me.
Holy smoke! It's the SMH moments. Yeah! And everything in between. GMFB Overtime.
If you know, you know.
It's football for everyone.
Premiere September 2nd on My 50 Chicago.